Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. I have a beautiful article here coming from our friends from CNN, and it's going to talk about the Ukrainian counteroffensive not meeting the expectations. So let me read you the title, the headline of this article, and then let's ask a few questions and maybe provide some answers. So, early stages of Ukrainian counteroffensive, and I'm quoting, not meeting expectations. Western officials tell CNN. This article is from Thursday, June 22nd, 2023. Expectations are in place after an evaluation, correct? I mean, when you expect something to happen, you evaluated a situation. And according to whatever you found out during your evaluation, the evidence, the fact, the data, then you expect something. For instance, you want to go to a party and you kind of know who's going to that party, from what time to what time, you know the history of that kind of party and so on. You can evaluate how the party will going to occur. I mean, certain people go over there, what neighborhood, have you been to such kind of party before, and so on. It's you evaluate it based on what you know about that party, who's going, and so on. You're going to go to the party and then the expectations are not met. That means you think it's going to be a great party. When you go over there, it's going to be a shitty party. That means that most likely you failed in your assessment because the expectations are not met. So something happened. And you try to evaluate, maybe you didn't take certain things in account. Maybe you didn't, you say, well, I didn't take this into consideration. I didn't look at this like that. Maybe I should have introduced this piece of information that it was not important. So in this case with the Ukrainian counteroffensive, I think the basic problem in the West's assessment is their delusional, narcissistic worldview, which, in other words, they're deluded. They have an ideology and they obviously filter the world through those lenses. And then they say, okay, this is how the world is, because the filters do not allow information that would, run against your ideology. Therefore, you're going to reach the wrong conclusions. You're going to make the wrong assessments because the evidence that you accept are either overinflated or over deflated or non-existent. So you have to be objective in assessing situations, and then you're going to be probably close to what's going to happen. Surprises occur, unknowns exist, but in general, in this kind of situation, you know that these guys who assessed the counteroffensive before it started, they, I think, kind of knew how much personnel the Russians have. I'm pretty sure they knew their defense systems. I'm pretty sure they knew their weapons, their locations. They knew all this. I mean, I don't think it's they did it just like, okay, let's go, hoorah, let's attack. It was not done like that. The certain positions were picked, certain axes. The front was used here, attacked. Not everywhere, just like, oh, let's go. So all that was very much planned. Now, what went wrong? Let's see, maybe these guys from CNN will provide us with some insight into that lack of success. And the key word here, one of them is early stages. Well, you don't know if this is they are in the early stages or this is already done, the counteroffensive. That implies that you kind of know the duration, and you don't. Or I don't know, maybe they're ready to fight for 3 years. This counteroffensive is going to take 3 years, and yes, this is early stages. But I'm guessing, well, how do you want them to refer to? Well, I guess early stages is fine, but I think could be seen as Middle Ages as well. In the early phase, Ukraine's counteroffensive is having less success, and Russian forces are showing more competence than Western assessment expected. I think this showing more competence the Russian forces is because I think the ideological view that the Russians are rowdy, don't follow orders, their equipment is poor, the weapons are rusty, and so on. The army is backward, and so on. I think this is the first assessment that I think they were wrong, and they're gonna be wrong because they look down on everybody else. And that's the narcissistic point I was making before. So the Western assessments expected. Two Western officials and a senior US military official tell CNN. Now, if CNN is allowed, and that's the key word, allowed, to run such a article, that means there's a lot of, how should I put it, change of heart somewhere in Washington, and not only. Because such a thing would have not appeared, let's say, in February or any time last year. The counteroffensive is, and I'm quoting, not meeting expectation on any front, one of the officials said. So it's a total failure. According to Western assessments, Russian lines of defense have been providing well fortified, making it well fortified, making it difficult for Ukrainian forces to breach them. In addition, Russian forces have had success bogging down Ukrainian armor with missile attacks and mines and have been deploying air power more effectively. Ukrainian forces are proving, and I'm quoting, vulnerable to minefields and Russian forces competent in their defense, one of the Western officials said. So NATO cannot win as Napoleon or Adolf tried. The officials cautioned that the counteroffensive is still in its early stages and that the US and its allies, there's no such a thing, and I'm quoting, remain optimistic. That's good. Ukraine forces will be able to make territorial gains over time. Will be able. Could be maybe. Might be able. Will be. That's a certainty right there in the future. Okay, again, this is delusional right here. You see, this is how ideology works. Ukrainian forces will be able to make their... How do you know that? It's a wishful thinking. You don't know. Might be able. Could be able. You can't even say should, because it's not like ought to. But again, this is how these people think. And then they say, hey, we are surprised. They didn't meet the expectations because your expectations were flawed. Bad. Bad expectation, bad assessment. The US and its allies are likely to wait until at least July for a fuller assessment of the progress of the counteroffensive, which was gradually launched over the last few weeks and is seen as crucial to determining who ultimately wins the war which was launched when Russia invaded last year unprovoked. I got it right over there, unprovoked. I gotta put it over there. Now, they said that this determines, if you remember, when it was the fight for Mariupol, they said this is the location and the time when the war will be determined. When it was the fight over Soledar, if you remember that one, again, this is the point where the war is determined. That's it. And they lost. When they went to Bakhmut or Artemovsk, the same way. This is the location where if Artemovsk or Bakhmut falls into the Russians' hand, this is where the war is determined. BS, no. And now again, this is the moment. Could be. I think, and making my assessment, that Ukrainians are at the limit of their personnel. I think this is everything they have before they will bring their quote-unquote army and volunteers from the Western Europe. And I did that because those guys are going to be volunteers and they will speak various languages because they stayed in those countries for a little while and they just speak some words, but they're going to be fluent. And then they have, I know, about 40,000 people I read, trained in all over Europe. When those guys are going to come, they're going to be like, I don't know, the French Foreign Legion, trained like crazy. Is again delusional. In addition, Those officials note that Ukrainian forces have themselves been adapting to Russian tactics and defenses. That's true, including carrying out more dismounted operations. In recent days, Ukrainian forces have also had more success targeting and shooting down Russian aircraft. Ultimately, the counteroffensive is proving a tough drive for Ukraine and Russia, one of the Western officials said, with both sides incurring heavy losses. And I'm not going to read this Zelensky stuff. So, this is the situation according to some experts, officials, military, blah, blah, blah. You would see it on the map. The problem, if you have success, you will see a lot of pictures. Hey, we reached this, we reached that. Even though daily, when I look over the media and try to read articles, at least some headlines, the Ukrainians are advancing continuously advancing. All right, and I was looking today over an article. They liberated 7 more. It was, I think, yesterday. 7 more villages or something, settlements, and then today they liberated 14 villages or settlements and so on. Well, I haven't heard the Russians galloping this fast in the past year, let's put it this way. So these guys are still doing what they did in October, or September, October last year, when the Russians claimed that they just pulled back so they can defend over the winter and so on. The Ukrainian, I would say, successful, whatever that was, counteroffensive, why successful? Because they advanced. So, like it or not, I retreat, I don't retreat, I give you the space and you take over. Now, it doesn't mean that that is a victory, because why? Maybe that could be taken in 3 days without anything, but it's a tactical maneuver. I don't know. We'll find out. Time will tell. The same thing with this counteroffensive. It's not over. It's still going on. Maybe in some locations the front can break, the Russians can crack, and then it's going to be successful. We'll find out. But as of now, no. I said that in the first 3 days when the Ukrainians did not want to report that they started a counteroffensive, because they didn't have any explosive news to report. That's why when on a Sunday, like 3 weeks ago, the Russians came and said it, the Ukrainians were quiet about a week. The Westerns started saying about Wednesday, Thursday, yes, this Ukrainian counteroffensive started and so on. But the Ukrainians did not say anything. Why? Because they didn't have anything to report. We started a counteroffensive, but nothing to report. Nothing positive. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.